Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. We look forward to a robust and interesting discussion around Eloqua, CDP, and Unity. So let's jump in and explore what's on the agenda for today. But first of all, just an acknowledgement of country. And we certainly like to begin today by acknowledging the Gadigal people, the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, and pay our respects to their elders past and present. And we certainly extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who may be joining us today. So thank you. All right, so here's our agenda. So a little bit of housekeeping and welcome. We'll do a recap of episode 1 for those who may not have had the chance to join us, where a CDP fits into your architecture. A little bit geeky, but it's an important topic. And then Unity in action, followed by some Q&A. As is usually the theme with most of our webinars, please feel free to throw any questions at us at any point, and then we'll wrap up with what's next, which is a bit of a hint in relation to the 3rd episode in this series. So who's with you today? So I'm delighted to have Jackson back with us. So Jackson is from Oracle Fusion Cloud Applications, and will be driving the demo portion for us today. So thank you, Jackson. Adrian Jones, our CEO and founder here at Marketing Cube, will also be helping and doing a bit of recap as well. And my name is Derek Bell. I'm your host for today's session. So in relation to the housekeeping, look, these sessions are really all about you at the end of the day. So we really encourage you to ask questions. You should have some little Zoom icons there at the bottom of your page, or you can throw up some love hearts or other bits and pieces if you want. So feel free to do that, and obviously use the chat or Q&A, whichever is easiest for you. So please throw the questions. We'd love to try and get some answers for you. But at that point, Adrian, I will hand over to you.
Thanks, Derek. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. As Derek mentioned, we wanted to start with a quick recap from episode 1, just in case you missed it. But the main focus was really on changes to privacy and governance legislation, and really to have a look at how CDP would help you to manage consent. And so we also talked a little bit about CDP more generally. And I think we can kind of summarize a CDP across the 5 things that it does really well. And the first one, coincidentally, is that privacy and consent management. And the way it does it is really it helps you to protect and govern your customer data and the data that you're ultimately responsible for. So it centralizes consent. And as most of you on the call will know, that's pretty difficult to do across multiple platforms and across different data silos. And well-managed consent and preferences helps to build trust. And that means not asking the same thing over and over again. It means not using incorrect data. It means not saying, "Dear valued customer," and essentially more trust tends to mean that you're entrusted with more data. So Derek, maybe you'll share maybe you can share in the chat or in the comms afterwards, but we do have a privacy and governance site. So if you haven't signed up yet and you're interested in finding out more, then please do join that. And we'll keep you updated, especially around legislation and how it's changing in Australia. So the second thing that Unity does really well is flexible data management. And that means ingesting large amounts of data, bringing it in from all your different sources, whether that's behavioral data, social data, service, finance, kind of all the data in your delivery or transactional type systems, third-party systems, and bringing it all together. And it also helps to detect inaccurate data and goes on and enriches that data for you as well. Which brings us to sort of the third piece, which is around identity management. And that's really managing account and customer records. It's deduping them and matching around IDs in real time. So it develops data relationships, and this helps to make that data more intelligible. So you may have heard of ID graphs, where kind of all things are sort of dependent on others. That's kind of this structure being built for you within kind of the identity management framework. So for unis, for example, that might mean dealing with multiple applications at different stages, or parents or carers that maybe they're also studying, or current students that are exploring postgraduate pathways, or trying to understand the changing reasons why people chose to study in the first place, and keep them on track. So there's all this sorts of variable data that we're trying to understand. But to take another example, say like cars or something like that, like the automotive area, maybe it's understanding owners and when they're coming out of finance or warranty, or the date of their next service, or when does the total cost of ownership costing them more than a new, I don't know, EV promotion that you've got running at the time. So it's really making those sorts of relationships and building that data. And then what we do, or what Unity does really well, is apply machine learning and AI to that data. And that helps to add intelligent attributes. And so that delivers kind of real-time intelligence, and that adds more meaning. So we can talk about customer lifetime values, or maybe implied personas, or scoring for leads or customers, and maybe propensity to churn, for example, and thinking about next best actions or other recommendations. Once you have this rich golden record, now that we've got this profile of structured data and these intelligent attributes, the final step is to be able to activate this across multiple channels. And so we can use this intelligence then to drive action and insights across MarTech and AdTech, or sales, service, loyalty, and even through to third-party systems and touch points. So essentially, it means that we can start to deliver consistent and informed personalized customer experiences. So that right message, right place, right time. And we know experience is really important. We know that if we deliver more personalized experiences, I think there was a quote from Epsilon that said that 80% of consumers are more likely to purchase from organizations that provide, or brands that provide, a personalized experience. And there are many examples of those types of stats. So we know that personalization is key in providing kind of exceptional service. So, but today, what we really wanted to focus on is how a CDP can, like Unity, can really help and inform marketing. So I'd like to hand over to Jackson, who's going to show us the power of Eloqua and Unity together.
Thank you, Adrian. If I could take the screen, that would be wonderful. And we'll jump into just a few slides just to set the scene. And then we're certainly going to get our hands on some product and explore what it looks like in the world of today's marketers. I'd like today's presentation to, it's difficult over a sort of webinar format, but I'd like today's presentation to be very conversational. So as Derek said at the start of today's session, please light up the chat. If it's just feedback, if it's a thumbs up, if it's a heart, if it's a thumbs down, like let's get engaged. I would love to hear from you guys. Okay, so today what we're going to look at is how we can achieve a single unified customer and use that data in an intelligent way in an ecosystem that we all seem to have that is so complex, so siloed, so disparate. I worked in the higher ed space for over 10 years, and one thing I saw was that, you know, our faculty of health had their own CRM, their own admissions team, their own marketing team. Our faculty of engineering had their own admissions teams, and you have all of this data sitting everywhere. And I know things have changed now, but the takeaway is that across modern organizations, we have data sitting in so many different places. We're going to look at how we can bring all of that together and do something meaningful with it, because as Adrian touched on, we do live in this experience economy where price and brand are no longer key decision-making factors. It's how good was my experience. That's the driver. So let's have a look at what a customer data platform can do for you. And if we look on the left of this slide, we'll see that we have a whole bunch of data sitting in our organization. It's sitting somewhere. Is it in our data lake? Is it in a CRM system? Whatever it happens to be, we have all of this data sitting somewhere. We have our opt-in and opt-out preferences. We have relationships. We have our engagement, whether it's behavioral or whatever it happens to be. We have service requests, incidents, inquiries. We have application forms. We have all of this wonderful stuff. We have the data. It's there, but we're just not using it. And so what a CDP is going to do for you is to bring all of that data into one location. It's going to take those profiles, those contacts, and say, hang on a second, Jack Hilaire and Jackson Hilaire, that's the same guy. Let's mesh those together and bring those together and keep those child records, but also maintaining that relationship with that source system so that we can then push that unified record back to that source system once we've done some magic with that record. As Adrian touched on, we now have a unified record of Jack, Jackson, Jacko, whatever the name the contact goes by. And let's do some fun things with that. What other contacts do we have in our system that look like Jackson? You know, we have lookalike audiences. How can we use that data? What about our households? How can we use that data? I'm working with a customer at the moment who, one of the things we're exploring is for Father's Day sales, how can we market and promote products that my father or a male in my household has looked at to somebody else within that particular household? And that's in the realms of what we're talking about today. Applying artificial intelligence and machine learning for exactly as Adrian said, like churn propensity, RFM, next best action, next best offer, etc., based on all of that data that we're collecting on our contacts and their engagement with our organization, not with our team, not with our brand, not with our department, but with our organization. And I'll talk about brands for a second. And to use the university example, we look at Canterbury University in New Zealand, and they have multiple arms of the business, one of which is responsible for the commercialization of their research. Now, very different arm of the business to the regular university that educates and develops research. They're out there commercializing the research, but we want to make sure we still have that unified view of who our organizations and contacts are. And then the third stage is the activation of that data. Now that we have this unified profile, now that we have all of these intelligent attributes and all this wonderful stuff, we have to do something with it. Otherwise, there's no point going down this exercise, going down this road. And so what does that mean for things like Eloqua? That means your segmentation, your personalization can go through the roof. You supercharge your Eloqua capabilities because you're now able to create segments based off data Eloqua would never, ever see. I talked about households. It might be a complaint in the service system against the organization. It would be terrible to send an email saying, hey, Jackson, come and buy this new product or come and engage with our service while I'm complaining about a previous service I've received. So simple things like that really help us sort of personalize and provide that unique experience. But the other thing too, which is really interesting, and I'll give some examples later, is around the whole persona-based journey concept. And that is like, what can we do with the information and what paths can we take our customers and prospective customers down if we know a little bit more about them? To use an example of something that we can all sort of relate to, I guess, is if we look at, and I'll use blood donation as an example. We all have either donated blood, platelets, or know of the process of donating blood. Now, I'm the kind of guy that every 3 months I sign up, I book, I go and donate blood or platelets, whatever it is that I've been asked to donate, and I have no problems with that. But there's people out there who are scared of needles, who are health conscious, who are time poor. Like I'm too busy to donate. I've got my children and school and work and life, and then on the weekends I've got soccer. I've just got no time to donate. I'm terrified of needles. I don't want to get a needle in my arm. What can we do? How can we differ the journey or the campaign or whatever through our organization based off having that kind of information? So you can see how something as simple as blood donation, we can talk to a whole range of different customers and take them down a different pathway based off who they are and what their experience or what their preferences are in terms of whatever it is that happens to be. Now you're probably thinking, but Jackson, we've got a data warehouse already. We have a DMP. We've already got customer data management, or we're looking at customer data management. Like what? We don't need this. We don't need a CDP. And look, that is a fair question. That is a fantastic question. And look, the answer is maybe you don't. Maybe you don't. But maybe you do. And if we look at what those platforms do, so if we look at CDM, for example, a customer data management platform, yeah, that takes your profiles and deduplicates them. It does that. That can enrich those profiles with additional data points. It can do that. But the customer data we're talking about is purely from a profile basis. It takes Jackson Hilaire from 4 Julius Avenue, North Ride 2113, and it merges it with the Jackson Hilaire 49 Brown Street, and puts them together as one record. But what's Jackson Hilaire looked at online? What purchases have I made through your organization? What services am I consuming? What clubs am I engaged with? What am I studying? Whatever it happens to be, we're not seeing a lot of that in your CDMs. And so the takeaway is that, yes, all of these platforms do wonderful work, but it doesn't give you the complete picture. The biggest piece of feedback I hear is around data warehouses. Hey, we've got Databricks, we've got Snowflake. We don't need another repository for our data. And you're right. You in your organizations, if I was a gambling man, I would say you do have a data lake of some sort, and that manages all of your archiving and your data storage and all of these wonderful things, and you're getting some fantastic insights from that data. 100% yes. But what is it not doing? Is it unifying your customer profiles? I bet it's not. And if it is, you're running complex SQL queries over the top of all of your data to try to achieve that. It's not an out-of-the-box feature. Is it mapping relationships? One of the challenges a lot of our data lakes have, and I'll use higher education as an example, is a lot of universities have PhD students or academics who are working for the university, but also studying. And so how do you manage that multiple sort of role within the one organization? It might be a contractor, but also working for an organization as well. And so how do you manage those complex relationships just for a specific contact, but also those relationships with the contact and accounts, or the contacts within the household, or the contacts with wherever it happens to be? Segmentation and management, something that isn't done well in data lakes. And the key takeaway is, if we have marketers on the webinar here, you don't have access to that information. Your CIO, your IT teams tend to say, no, this is enterprise data. We can't just give this access to anybody. And so the CDP is really designed for your marketers, for the people who are engaging with your customer base, to be able to access that data and do some interesting things with that data. And so with that in mind, what does a sort of high level architecture look like for your organization? It might be that we take what you already have. You already have that marketing data warehouse that has all of your sort of campaign data there. We take your Eloqua, your marketing orchestration platform that has your segments and your campaign data. Your unified profiles might be managed through CDM, or your DMP, whether it's the Oracle product or Google tags, whatever it happens to be, that behavioral data, that site traffic, bringing that in. And so what we're saying is, we don't need to completely revisit our IT ecosystem. We don't need to revamp and remap everything. We can supplement and complement what you already have to build on those existing investments. Okay, and the final piece before we jump into getting our hands dirty is looking at, and this spawns from a lot of conversations I have with prospective and current customers, is the question around your master data management strategy comes up. And it's easy to say, we have a data lake. All of our data, structured, unstructured, whatever, sits in the data lake. We have our strategy. It's fine. But when you sort of break down that MDM within your organization, and you look at the sort of enterprise data you have, who are your products and suppliers? Where does your financial data sit? Geographic data, if you have multiple locations or campuses or stores or whatever it happens to be, offices. Where does your customer data sit, and how is it being used? And so a lot of conversation I have is around using CDP to build that segment of your MDM, the customer data master, sitting in CDP. What are the customer transactions? What are their purchases? What are their open rates for emails? What's their online behavior look like with their profile? All of that wonderful content being pulled into one simple platform to manage your customer data as part of your MDM strategy. Okay, that's enough talk. Let's get into the fun stuff here. So we have a few minutes to share. And look, before I start, I'll just say we're going to see some product and sort of understand a little bit what a data model looks like for our customers, for our potential customers. We're going to explore some of the AI models that are available to you out of the box. And we're going to have a look at sort of some of that advanced segmentation we talked about at the start of today's conversation. We'll jump into that. If there's anything in today's conversation that you want to explore deeper, whether it's more industry specific, whether it's more product specific, whether it's capability specific, whatever it happens to be, please reach out to Adrian, Derek, or myself. We are more than happy to get together as a collaborative group and talk through some of these things and have some conversations to see what can be done for your organization to sort of achieve that art of the possible, that golden standard. All right, so let me just jump out here to I'm in the Oracle CDP here, the Unity CDP. And I just want to walk through at a very high level what the user experience looks like. And so here we have obviously a home which has some analytics. We can dive down into some campaign analyses. We'll get there in a second. Your data model, we have all of that data coming in from wonderful external systems, Oracle and non-Oracle. What does that look like? Viewing that data. Our master entities, how do we manage those unification rules around bringing profiles together and those mappings of relationships between accounts and household and all those other wonderful things? Events, what are we listening for? And if I can give an example in the FSI space, we have a bank in India who's using this platform, and what they're using this for is for customers who go to make a purchase on their credit card, and the transactions decline because they don't have enough available credit. Now, what happens? An event is triggered in CDP. We look at their maximum available credit limit, and then we reach out to the customer via the marketing orchestration platform through an SMS or whatever it happens to be, a push notification, and say, hey, we noticed you just had a transaction declined. Do you want to increase your credit limit? Sure. They fill out a quick form to give consent to approve that. We know what they're able to get as part of their credit, and that's approved instantaneously. So within minutes, that potential customer has gone from not being able to make that purchase to having their credit limit increased and being able to make that purchase without human intervention. It's pretty incredible if you're in that space. Intelligence Workbench, we'll come to this in a second, and this is where we see a lot of the out-of-the-box AI models that you can access, and you can run them once, you can run them a million times. It does not impact your subscription. Sources and destinations. Where is your data coming from? What do those integrations look like? And where is that data going? We talked about that map that showed all of that messy data on the left and data being ingested from various sources, but then it needs to go somewhere for activation. Is it a segment pushed through to Eloqua? Is it some intelligent fields like next best action or next best offer pushed through to your CRM or your service platform, so that when a customer calls, you can try to upsell or promote certain services or products? Segmentation and where those segmentations go. But we're going to jump now into Profile Explorer and just going to see a little bit about what it looks like from that unified customer profile. I've jumped into my friend Raoul Poutifar. He's a Frenchman. He's big into fashion. He's been buying a lot of trousers lately and also handbags for some reason. We can see that the customer lifetime value is a big time spender, our friend Raoul. His average order is about 1.3K, which is a lot more than what I spend on fashion, if I'm being honest. But look, I'm not going to judge Raoul for his spending habits. And it's only been 12 days since his last purchase. And we get some data on like, when does Raoul tend to buy from us? Sundays. What month? Obviously, Raoul's a big Christmas shopper. He does a lot of his shopping in December. But we can also see his behavior too. Like how is he opening emails and how is he responding to SMS and whatnot? So what buckets can we put him in based off that sort of data? So you can see at a very high level, we're bringing in purchase data, campaign data, all sorts of data already into a very simple snapshot of who Raoul is. And let's dig a bit deeper into Raoul. So I'm just going to jump into the master customer summary. And we can see that we're seeing some interesting things already. And it's, just some high level fields on who Raoul is, but we can dig a bit deeper into the most popular hour, most popular month, and we can start to sort of understand a little bit more about Raoul and his habits. We can look at Raoul's lifetime value over 6 months, 3 months, 12 months. How can you use this data? We can have a look at the campaign summary. What sort of campaigns is Raoul engaging in? And I'll bring up another one in a second. Channels. What's the best way to engage with Raoul? Now, keeping in mind, this is not just data coming from your marketing platform. And this is the beauty of a CDP, is that, yes, Eloqua can tell you what the best channel to contact a profile or a contact on, rather, but we're looking at, what's Raoul using to engage with our brand across all of those various touch points. And we can see that email is his preferred channel. What's Raoul looking at? We can see Raoul's been looking at various things. He's been online shopping with us. He's looking at the We Fashion online store. We can see what he's digging through. Now, another conversation I'm having with a customer and why this is important is, I think I mentioned the Father's Day scenario, where we want to know what have the males who are over a certain age in my household or my organization been looking at, and how can we market to their family, their colleagues, and say, hey, look, Father's Day is around the corner, without directly saying it, but this is what your dad's been looking at. So he might like a bottle of scotch, or he might like the don't ask me to pronounce that blazer there, but to promote sales or products that might fit that particular niche group of products that your family's been looking at. We can see lookalike audiences. So Raoul fits into this bucket here, and we define the rules for these audiences. And you might have one lookalike audience, you might have 1,000, but we can use these as part of our segments to say, hey, We want to target other high spenders like Raul. So here are the accounts that or the contacts that look like Raul. Loyalty is a big thing for a lot of organizations. How has Raul accrued his loyalty points, and what has he done with them? So we can see here, if we dig a bit deeper, we can see how many points he's got, what bucket he fits into. And so we can start to see, oh, okay, well, he's earned 25 points this month. He has a total of 130. So we can start to understand a bit more about Raul and what he's doing with his loyalty points and how he's collecting those points. Here's the redemption one I was talking about. Oh, he hasn't bought anything yet with his points. In our first session, we talked about consent. We talked about compliance. We talked about the change in legislation that we're seeing here in Australia and how it's a moving target. Our leaders our leaders have blatantly said that, yes, we've put some new legislation through, but that's not the end of the conversation. There's going to be changes. So understanding what Raul has consented to in terms of communications across your entire organization. Here we can see it's quite simple, just for the sake of today's conversation. It's I consent to push, I consent to phone calls, I consent to email. But what does that mean if we're a multi-brand organization? If we look at a customer of our Luxottica, if you wear glasses, there's a good chance there's a 99.9% chance you've touched Luxottica at some point in your optometrist's history. And so they have hundreds and hundreds of brands. Look at a company like Disney, they have hundreds and hundreds of brands. And so how do we manage consent across all of those brands? Bringing all of those into one central locations, this is what it looks like. Having all of these data in one central location so that you can then share that with whatever system you're using. Preferences, customer preferences are very important. But here we start to dig into some of the intelligence in the system. And we're starting to see what the next best action might look like. What's the next best action we can provide for Raul based off his history with us? And we can see in this case, it's we have a new purse coming out. That's the highest ranking option there. So maybe Raul's interested in this purse. And so we can dig into that data. Or next best offer. Let me bring that one up again too. So our next best offer might be, hey, there's a gift card is number one here for $25 off. I think Raul would laugh at $25, but what does that look like for you guys? It might be, if you're a university, promoting clubs or societies within your university to get students more engaged in their first year of study. For those of us that studied at uni, I'm sure you had a great first year and walked into a room full of best friends and you formed friendships like that and off you went. Not always the case for some students, and so promoting what services are available to assist those new students is immeasurably important. We'll look at some of the AI models in a second. But you can
throw a question at you.
Yeah, sure.
So we look at these audiences sitting here in Unity from an Eloqua point of view. When it's time for me to build an audience. What's the connection point there? Am I able to grab the purse option or whatever it was, the number one rank one there, and have that come in? Or does that bring in, I suppose there must be other people in there who I assume would probably fall into that same category. How would you connect the two then?
Yeah, that's a great question, Derek. And look, if you think about the dynamic content in Eloqua, if we're sending communication to our customer base, and we can shape that dynamic content based off what the next best offer might look like or the next best action, how good is that? That you open up an email and there's that purse that you're looking at, or there's that item that you were considering. It's a no-brainer. If you receive a communication from one of the supermarkets that you shop at, it's very different to the one I get. It's yes, all of the offers and sales are the same, but what I see on my front page, Derek, is going to be different to yours. And look, we're not going to dig into all of these data points, but you get a feel for the sort of data that's coming in, and we're pulling that together, and we're using that data in interesting ways to push that back out and use that. And one of the fun little things I like to show is even ridiculous data, like what's the weather forecast at Raul's address. Now, wouldn't it be cool if I'll use higher ed as an example? You have an open day, and that same open day, or that open day might be held across 4 different campuses. Wouldn't it be cool if you could send an SMS or an email to the prospective and current students who are attending that open day and say, hey guys, there's a good chance it's going to rain, bring an umbrella. Now, you don't want to send that to everybody, but just the ones who are going to be impacted by that bad weather. There's a whole range of things you can do with this data, and the possibilities are sort of limitless and endless, but it's really up to your imagination how you can take all of this collated data and use it in a segment. And we're going to jump into that now and see what that looks like. Okay. So when we're looking at the data models available to us, what's this one? Not that one. Wrong one, Jackson, on the intelligence workbench. When we're looking at the models available to us, look, we understand that your organization might have already invested time and resources into building your own models. That's fine. We let you bring those along as well. You're not locked into the ones we have. But out of the box, we have a whole range of models available to you that you can start using day one. We've seen things like next best offer, next best action, but we saw the CLV, but things like product propensity and predictive account scoring for any B2B customers, churn propensity. For our higher ed customers out there, something I'm working on at the moment, understanding retention is a big problem in higher ed in Australia, New Zealand, and globally for that matter, is taking these models and bending them and saying, well, let's not just look at email open rates, let's look at grades and let's look at engagement, and let's see if we can proactively predict which students are going to consider not signing up by census date at for next semester. And so we have a list then, a lookalike audience or a churn propensity list, whatever it happens to be, a list of students who are at risk before they even know they're at risk because they look like these other students who dropped out in the past. And so how fantastic is that to be able to then communicate with those students and say, hey, these are the support services we have available, or whatever it happens to be. And what those models look like, we're still working on. It might be students who look at job opportunities on the university website because they're at a point where they need more financial assistance to be able to continue their studies. But that's within the realms of our capabilities here.
So with that intelligent workbench, Jackson, at the event in Sydney last month or the month before, they announced a number of new models that were available. So do we understand then that this is kind of like this is a moving target, that Oracle will be continuing to release new models, I suppose, as you get more customers experimenting and playing?
Derek, 100%. And I'm glad you asked that question, but I'm also a little bit frustrated because we have 4 existing Oracle customers. There's some massive news just around the corner with Unity CDP, and I can't quite say what it is today. But
and that safe harbor, right?
Yeah, certainly by our next conversation, 100%. I'll be dancing off the rafters. You'll hear me singing it from the streets of Newcastle, where I am. But yeah, very, very exciting, very big news, and I just can't quite another month. There, so.
Jackson, can you elaborate on unstructured data, sort of things that might be embedded in, say, chat conversations or maybe a call transcript? How accessible is that type of data?
That's a really good question, Adrian, and it comes down to, with the API framework of CDP, is that there's no limit, as long as we can access the data, there's no limit on what we can do with it and bring it in. Now, one of the things that I don't want to get too salesy, but one of the capabilities of our service platforms are being able to summarize a chat. And so using that generative AI capability to summarize a chat, pull out keywords, etc., and then using that data then to be able to say, okay, well, this is the sort of thing we can talk about with customers, with prospective students, with prospective customers, prospective partners, whatever it happens to be.
But maybe this churn sentiment, for example, even in that conversation that you could then use in a score, for example.
Yeah, that's it. And one of the things I didn't show was sentiment analysis. So being able to look at the customer sentiment across their engagements, not just through chat, not just through their experience through CRM and service requests. But yeah, that's one of the fields that we have available for us in that one of those intelligent attributes we can talk about. Certainly. Conscious of time, let's just jump into the segmentations. We've looked at what a customer profile looks like, and the sort of data that we can collect and how we can use that data. We've looked at a very high level what those AI models are available to us. And in the next few minutes, I just wanted to touch on segmentation. And so what I'm doing here is I'm looking at a list of all of the campaigns we've run as part of the various promotions. And I'm just picking four at random just to, we're going to compare these campaigns and see how various demographics within our segment have performed. And obviously I've kept this quite simple. I haven't shown all of the data points available to us. But we can see when we look at this end of summer sale and compare it to these getting a workout sales and Christmas sales and whatever, we can see that divorcees between 45 and 54 who are relatively high income earners have really engaged well with this particular campaign, and when we compare it to others. The open rate's quite good. Whereas master degree students who are sort of low income earners and between 25 and 34, they haven't engaged well at all. And so what can we do here? Well, we can sort of change that and say, well, what was our conversion rate for these students? Well, that tells a different story. But if we go back to open rate, what I'd like to do is just grab a segment here. Well, let's grab this bottom segment and say we want to get these Spanish speakers who are low income earners, but they've got master's degrees and they're quite young. And we're going to have a look at this particular group here. Now that I've grabbed that group, I'm just going to say marketing cube. Oops. We're going to create a segment from that data. And Derek, you asked what that means before. You asked, what does this mean for Eloqua? Well, here we've just created a segment out of our campaign analyses across multiple campaigns. But you can see when we're building these segments, whether it's a waterfall segment, a standard segment, whatever it happens to be, you can see we have access to, all of this wonderful content here. So what sites is the customer looking at of ours? What are they browsing on? Is it desktop? Is it mobile device? What's their operating system? We can get to that level of granularity here. We can see what campaigns they've engaged with, and we can use that. We can look at incidents. So something Eloqua might not know is, do I have an open complaint with the organization? Maybe I do. Let's add that into our segment there, and it should be an exclusion list, but you get the point there. Mm-hmm. We can say that the category matches a certain category and bring that up through a drop down there. We can see where the customer is, or our prospective customer is. We can see the recommendations, and so you can see how you can really, really hone in on a segment with all of that information you have. What's their social engagement, the promotion categories, etc. What products are they buying? What are they looking at? So we can build segments with all of that beautiful collated data that we have, and bring that into our marketing orchestration platform to really drive the engagement. So look, I'll
Jackson, how would you, to actually access that segment itself, do I have to send it to Eloqua? Can I see it from Eloqua? What's the actual point of interaction?
You can, Adrian. And look, this is something I'm more than happy to set up for another call. We're sort of challenged by time, but yes, in Eloqua, you have the Unity app out of the box. And what that means is that if we set up Eloqua as a destination, I don't need to show this, but you set up Eloqua as a destination, and that pushes the segment up to Eloqua once you activate it. And then when I'm in Eloqua, I just choose, when I'm choosing my segments, instead of choosing a segment, I choose the Unity app, and then I choose my segment from that app.
Gotcha.
So what does that mean? That means that if this is complex and confusing for you, and you think, oh, this is too much for my marketers, your marketers don't need to see CDP. They might still work in Eloqua. Their day-to-day does not change. Their learning curve does not change. Their day is the same. Some of your team will be in CDP building their segments, etc., managing that data. But for some of your marketing staff, they'll just select their segment from a different field within Eloqua.
Right. So all your roles and all those sorts of things, access can be controlled via that mechanism around availability and who needs to see, or who has the ability to be able to see different segments.
Exactly.
So we've got a question here from Cameron, based on what we just showed. I'm wondering if that answers your question, but his question is, how does the segmentation actually function from Unity to Eloqua? For example, does the segment show up on the canvas and transactionally check back to Unity before sending it, or is it loaded into Eloqua and then sent back as a batch? That's a good question. I suppose is there a live connection?
Certainly is. And if you've got a dynamic segment, 100%, it's checking back with Unity at regular intervals.
Right. So just like Eloqua does today to itself.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's what that out of the box app, the Unity app, does, is it just builds that bridge between the segment you have in Unity and Eloqua, and it's just constantly using that. It's just like bringing in a segment from a different source. If I can just bring up this one last slide, and just something to sort of think about, and just a bit of a thought exercise for our audience here is, based off the organization you work for and your interests, when you look at that segmentation, how can you use some of that data we saw, whether it's something as ridiculous as the weather forecast or a transaction history or behavioral data, how can you use that to sort of redefine some of your targeting? With that 360 account view, what does that mean for you? And when we look at that, we're talking about like households and other relationships, such as accounts and whatever it happens to be. Your lead scoring and nurturing, and being able to use this data across multiple channels. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you're using a digital assistant or a chatbot, being able to bubble up information there, or for your agents in a call center, or through email or SMS campaigns or push notifications through social channels, having access to that same core database. And also, how can we use that data we saw to reduce churn, to reduce retention if you're in the higher ed space, to provide cross and upsell opportunities, regardless of that channel the customers are coming in at. That's where CDP really helps you guys with sort of finding value and driving conversations. And if you don't believe me, have a conversation with Ferrari, have a conversations with Pet Supplies Plus, go and drive a Mazda. If you watch Oracle Red Bull Racing, they use CDP. Oracle uses our own CDP. We eat our own cat food, I think the expression goes. And if you're talking about scalability, we have over 12,500 segments that we use out of our CDP. So from a scalability perspective, it's a tremendous product.
I think it's dog food, just quietly.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Derek.
There was a follow-up question here from Cameron Jackson in relation to that connection that we talked about with Unity and contacts, obviously, and all activity. So he says, okay, so how does that affect the Eloqua licensing that is based on contacts? I hadn't even thought about that, but
yeah, that's a good question, Cameron. That's a great question. So obviously the contact needs to be sitting in Eloqua. So if the contact needs to be created from that Unity segment, it will be created in Eloqua. Now the beautiful thing is that Unity is deduping your records for you. So that means that there's no Jack Hilaire, no Jackson Hilaire sitting in or possibly sitting in Eloqua. You're getting the one record. So you can expect a reduction. Some of our customers, when we talked about unifying those customer profiles, this is using a different product, but the takeaway is that from that deduping perspective, we have councils who have gone from 1.3 and 1.6 million contacts down to 900,000 contacts within their ecosystem. So there's some big savings and reduction of efforts and wasted marketing exercises based off that deduping alone. Licensing for CDP works off contacts at the moment. And yeah, so it's also a profile contact conversation as well. The big difference between the Eloqua contacts and the CDP contacts is that our CDP contacts welcomes unknown and known contacts. So if somebody browses on your website, you might just have an IP address, a device, a location, whatever it happens to be, but we don't know that the name is Jackson Hilaire. If that customer creates an account, if that customer signs in, even if we start seeing that customer come in from the same IP, whatever it happens to be, CDP, using the rules you configure, can stitch those records together and say, hey, customer number 142YZ693, whatever happens to be in CDP as an unknown contact, we now know he is Jackson Hilaire. So let's stitch those together. So you get that continual history of that particular contact, and you don't have two different contacts in your system anymore.
Right. Look, we've just gone a little bit over our 45-minute time slot. So let me, I might just throw up the Q&A deck here just quickly. So if anybody does have any questions, we're happy to stay online here for just a couple of moments and walk you through some responses. Or if you need to leave us and say goodbye, that's okay. We still love you. But happy to have a chat separately if you'd like to do that. But are there any other questions or feedback? Any final thoughts from you, Adrian?
No, I think I'm just again curious about, I suppose, a little bit more around what the app can do within Unity to access that data and use it. So, for example, can we use it for dynamic content, or could we do, or does it have to be in a field for us to access it potentially from Eloqua? Don't know if that's something you can answer now, or whether that's kind of something that would need to follow.
Yeah, we'll certainly. I think we'll dive into that, Adrian, at another call. And one thing I want to talk about too is a lot of the artificial intelligence we're seeing in both Unity and CDP, and how we can use those AI capabilities together. And it's interesting because our customers say, "Oh, but we have send time optimization in Eloqua. Why is it important that I consider CDP for that?" That's a valid question, and we'd love to have those sort of conversations as well.
Yeah, I certainly think that kind of this as a foundation for AI is going to be really, so I think we're going to focus on that next time. And I think just having that data available and how you could use it to leverage AI kind of and more across what we do and automate more of what we do, then that's obviously going to open up so many more opportunities.
And I'm chomping at the bit to share my news. I just can't do it today, and it's killing me. But next time we meet, 100%, you'll hear about it.
And so episode 3, we should let everybody know that's still with us on the line. Episode 3 will take a little bit more of an AI bent. Is that right, Jackson? We want to look a little bit more at that level of functionality within, I suppose, Unity, but also within Eloqua. So it'll be a little bit more of the two that we'll discuss next episode, yeah?
Yeah, and look, I think, Derek, I know we're closing on a poll, and I'd like to throw it out to the audience and say, like, we're here for you guys. I see there's a comment in the Q&A saying that there's so many questions. Look, Cameron, reach out to Derek, Adrian, or myself, and let's have a chat. We can talk about what's happening in your industry. We can talk about what we're doing for the particular area or organization you're working with. We're happy to have those conversations offline as well. So 100%. Don't hesitate to reach out, have a conversation. And if it's just asking questions, you don't need to buy anything off us, just to help you work through some of the complexities of your organization. I'm more than happy to have those conversations, my friend.
All right, that's fantastic. Well, yeah, look, a few people have answered that poll already. I'll leave that there. There's still a few people on the line, but I suppose that I'm not hearing a lot of discussions with clients in relation to Gen AI. I don't know if people are still a little bit of the closet in relation to using it and don't want to fess up necessarily, or how they're seeing it be of benefit. I think there's major benefits, but they're all slowly unfolding, and we're learning, and we're making mistakes, and things are going to be okay. But yeah, it's an interesting time, and it's obviously what you guys in the tech world are delivering is pretty revolutionary. So it's going to be an interesting episode 3. I look forward to it. I might just quickly end that and show those results that we've got, and it's kind of pretty even at the moment. So yeah, content creation's kind of coming out on top there. Now our sample size is not massive here, by the way, so let's not get too excited. But the interesting point is that this was a multiple choice question, and it's pretty evenly spread, I think. So let's see what we can do to expand on some of those points in episode 3.
Yeah. And look, Derek, just to add to that comment, if anybody has anything they want to dive into at a deeper level in episode 3, please reach out to Adrian or Derek and let your voice be heard, because we're here for you. We want to make this relevant to you. So please don't hesitate to reach out saying, can we explore what's happening in Eloqua, or can we explore a particular element of the industry, or can we explore what's happening, whatever you want. Please reach out.
Thank you. Look, we will wrap it up there, and we'll have details for you in our follow-up communications in relation to episode 3, so you can join us then. But otherwise, thank you so much for making some time today, Jackson. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And thank you, Adrian.